It's great. Two-factor is great, except that things like Microsoft Outlook and other applications that you use to access different things, it can be a real pain. You can really screw things up on like your phone apps and stuff, like your email and your phone apps and stuff. What a nightmare that was for me. I had to come out of, I did Gmail with two-factor, and I had to back it out.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't getting emails, my calendars weren't updating, nothing was working right.
There's some things you just can't do with two-factor.
Well, and it kind of stinks, right? What you can't do in most cases with two-factor is leave the point of origin, right? So like for that example, Gmail, you can go to Gmail, two-factor works great, and check your Gmail on Gmail or in your Gmail app. But the minute you step outside of that and go to your iPhone mail or your Outlook or whatever, you run into all kinds of bull crap. Or at least in my experience, I ran into all kinds of bull crap that I had to back out because it was frustrating. All right. 403 is out. So many things we're doing in 403, right? With JavaScript, is we're adding some click events. And so this week you're going to focus on events, capturing and bubbling, propagation, and really just events as we know them in JavaScript. The browser operates on events. And so some of our things that we'll look at is the way that we actually go after events and assign them. To start with, as we go through, and we're talking about some of these things, there's some important things to understand, which is there's some differentiations between how we can assign events to different things. And one of the important things to pay attention to is, if you see here, we have this link clicked right function. It comes up here to this, gets called with an object going into it. And what we're doing here is we're adding an on click event to each one of these. And that's not dangerous. We're good there. We're okay there. But what we have to remember is when we're assigning on-click events, right? And you'll learn this through what you read. On-click actually can be overwritten. So in other words, if we put on-click do this on an element, and then we put on-click change the background color, do this won't happen. Change the background color will happen. So one of the things that you'll find, now sometimes it just makes sense and it's fine to do it, right? It's okay to do it. But it's a one-off per an element. It's a one-off.
Can't change them all in one statement.
Well, you could, but and when you're writing JavaScript, it doesn't always work out that way, right? So, and more importantly, more important than knowing how to use it, for one, right? What's even more important is knowing what it does allows you when you're troubleshooting. Hey, I'm clicking on this, and I told it on click on line 1982 that it should change the background color, or it should whatever. I did that, and holy crap, now it doesn't go to the page anymore. What happened? Well, if you don't understand JavaScript, what happened? If you used on click, you're like, oh, maybe I should do add event listener because I'm probably overriding it on click, right? So as we're talking, we're going to talk about different things, and I want to point out that we're using on click in here. And as with anything in my assignments, you are welcome to challenge and change. Tyler does it all the time. Doesn't always get it right, but he does all the time. As a matter of fact, I would encourage you to, because pretty much most of what I've done as far as our projects go, there's a reason behind why I'm using what I'm using, right? And sometimes there's not. Sometimes it was old habit. And so being challenged to correct it and step it up I'm all for that, right? Like, awesome. But do keep in mind that a lot of times, if I'm using a for not a while or a whatever, there might be a reason to that. And so explore that reason as well. Make sure you test thoroughly if you try to step off the rails. So that, you see what's going on. So, interesting enough, we talk about events in JavaScript. We've talked about events a lot, but I don't think any of you have really dove into what exactly an event is, right? A listener or whatever, like in its full scope of things, correct? The videos are short in the lessons, but they're very thorough and to the point. And honestly, I think that they explain things. Between the two videos, it's inside of 20 minutes of video, and it's probably 20 years of knowledge that'll last you, right? It's knowledge that you'll use for the next 20 years, kind of thing. You got to look at it that way. But what's really interesting, and for me, when I first started learning, you get this illusion, you have this idea that when I click on this button, right here, or that button, or that button, or that button, what's being clicked? Button, right? Let's go look at something really important. To be honest with you, can somebody tell me what's being clicked? We could say it's the list item. Is that what we put in the JavaScript? Links. We went after the A's. I'm being very right? Because I'm trying to see if anybody can really think about what's being clicked. What counts as being clicked when I click there? Huh?
Anchor.
This, so you're saying this counts as being clicked? Anything else?
Container?
Okay,
All of that.
so you're saying that counts as being clicked? Are you saying that?
I mean, technically, but not really.
So Jimmy, you're going down the road, and I'll stop there because Jimmy went down the road I wanted to. When I click on that A, when I click on this right here, with the browser, the information that the browser is saying is being clicked is this. That, all the way up to the body. So when I click on that A, everything that A is inside of, right? If we were to take the page, right, we're looking at the page this way. If we were to take the page and lay it over and be able to see the elements kind of stacked inside themselves, everything that element is a part of is registered as a click as well, believe it or not. Yes.
Now you say A, what do you mean by A?
That anchor tag.
Oh,
Right.
Okay, I see.
So if I could take this and flip it up, what we would see is like this, right?
Yeah.
Because the anchor tag would be up here and then the LI and so if you can take that and you can do what I'm saying, it's what it worked for me to finally like see things kind of. I took it in my head, brought it up, and what I saw was starting at the body, right? I'm kind of looking at it this way. So I saw body, div, ul, li, a. You know what I mean? And that helped me start to kind of make sense out of things. But when we talk about events, so now you got to take that if you did it like I did, which is, climbing the mountain kind of thing. Honestly, what you have to do is this. So it's body, div, ul, li, a. Does that make sense? So A is actually at the bottom of the trough, not at the top of the wave, right? I had to kind of flip it over. And the reason I had to flip it over is because when it comes to events, we have two things that happen whenever an event happens. And by the way, what's really funny is when do events happen? Like right now, am I triggering off events?
They're listening.
Oh,
Been doing it.
am I on there? Oh, son of a bitch. Am I triggering off events? I sure am. XY coordinates, right? Of the mouse. Hovers, right? So this browser is like, all you have to do is fart next to your computer, right? And move that mouse 1 pixel, and you probably triggered off about how many, right, events. Now, we have event listeners. So events are constantly being triggered off, right? It's like being married, man. Your spouse just won't, and I'll say spouse, just won't shut up, right? Like you're 4 hours in the car, like, oh my God, somebody shut the computer off. That's kind of what's going on there. And that's why we call them listeners, because what we want to do is we want to basically, let's say all events travel on this one communication fiber optic line, right? One thread. And so what we do with event listeners is kind of reach out and tap in at a point and say, I'm listening for this specific event. And when it happens, let me know, because I got something I want to do. So the other interesting thing about events that I had a hard time wrapping my head around, and hopefully we'll be able to end a couple weeks of you trying to understand. So if we look at this, here's our trough that I said about, right? Yep. Right here, we're essentially at the end of the trough, correct? And so when that A gets clicked, and then the LI, and then the UL, and the nav, the div, the div, the div, the body, what do we call it? Does anybody know?
Call it bubbling.
Bubbling. We call that bubbling. So we have bubbling, capturing, and propagation is what we're really trying to learn about this week.
My next question would be, what's the difference between event capturing and event bubbling?
Okay, good. And that's good. The easiest way to show you is images. I think I pulled something up here. Hang on.
Can I say something quick?
Sure.
When I was reading about this, I kind of thought of
Your mic is back to man, dude. Take that mic and throw it against the wall.
I would like. Am I good here?
You're better. At least you're not like Trent Reznor on acid and cocaine at the same time. Go ahead. Try it again.
So, when I was reading about this, I kind of thought of like a 12-foot pool where like you had an event down at the bottom pool, and then events could butt up at like the 10-foot mark, 8-foot mark, and the foot mark, and going all the way up, and then you got your bubble at the top, and that's the I think of. I don't know if that helps anybody, buddy.
I feel like I was just watching MTV Max Headroom Headbangers Ball on a Friday night at 12 o'clock, dude.
I'll write that out in Slack.
Well, I might say I heard a little what you said, and I might be able to get this for you. So there's certain things that happen whenever an event takes place. The bubbling, as I said, bubbling means it's on its way up, right? It's that event, that communication. When an event happens, there's communication, and we're just focused on bubbling right now. Bubbling is based right? So it's kind of working its way up the chain, like right out of things. And whoever's listening for that event, for that specific event to happen, will be able to, right, acknowledge it and do something with it. But the funny thing is, and we'll talk deeper and deeper, so we're just going to go high level real quick. The funny thing is what we have capturing and bubbling. So believe it or not, one good thing that I, Internet Explorer, did for us, as you'll learn, I have to give him credit, why I'm mentioning, I don't mention it. Up until IE, we did something called capturing, and only capturing. This is capturing, going down into the trough. So in other words, if you clicked on the nav, it would go down to the LI to the A and be done. Historically, Netscape Navigator, all the browsers, that's what we did. IE, so I guess there is some good, right, in the narcissistic, self-centered, pretentious sons of bitches called Microsoft, right? Who thought that their way was the only and best way. And I think this is one of 2 out of the 16 trillion things they've done to disrupt this industry that we've actually adapted, grabbed hold of, and continue to use today. IE's like, no way. We want to use it on the way up. So therefore, our browser, if you click on, if you click on this, on table, right, your dumbass capturing is just going to go down into the rows and the cells. We believe if you click on table, you should capture a table and it should bubble up the window. It should bubble out, right? Kind of just float out of the DOM. And whatever wants to tag it, tag it. Well, the funny thing is, it took a while because people didn't want to admit that for the first time out of 16,943 billion, Microsoft had a really good point. And as a matter of fact, our point was so good. If we would have given up capture phase, oh God, Microsoft, we'd still be hearing about it today. They would be like, we are the bubbling giants, something like that. And there was value in keeping capturing. And so finally they decided, you know what? Let's do capturing and bubbling. Well, of course, Microsoft acted like little dipshit pricks about it, and it took till IE9 till they finally gave in to to capturing. So post IE9 back, again, why we don't like Microsoft, because you have to know version numbers down to the subversions on what they allow and what they didn't allow, because they were too childish to participate in reindeer games. I hate them. I love Bill Gates. I do. I love Bill Gates, honestly. It was the IBM syndrome that I hated. You guys aware of IBM syndrome? Do you know what that is?
Isn't that nobody ever got fired for buying an IBM?
For what?
Buying an IBM? Or no?
No. It's really interesting.
I'd say it's IBM thought that they set the standard. Whatever they said is what the standard was.
To a degree, we could say that's IBM syndrome. If any of you, so I studied psychology, so I really found this interesting because it came up in my psychology too. Watson, who discovered IBM, back in that time, if you look for old IBM commercials on YouTube or something, you will always see the black suit, the black tie, the white shirt. IBM had this philosophy of you do your job, keep your mouth shut, and we don't want innovators. Don't shake the system. Don't change anything up. What we're doing is right. Well, it's not that it was right. What they were doing, they were the only ones doing it. That's why it was right. That's why it was working out. There is huge organization. When Watson's son took over, I'm making this really short, right? At IBM, if you worked at IBM during that period, if everybody went to Jimmy John's for lunch and you decided you were going to go over to the Hamburger Hut, you'd get fired for that. Like you could get fired for that. Like it was, you fit this, right? You fit this stereotype and you live this stereotype, or we don't want you to be a part of you're going to shake things up. We don't want shakers. So Watson came in, and we have all these other organizations that are kind of following, which is funny. They're following these footsteps of IBM, which is why, I think it was Xerox, right? Which is why Steve Jobs could walk into Xerox and say, you really don't want that thing called a mouse? It is kind of silly, but I'd like to play with it. Do you mind if I take it? No, you can have it. Go ahead. We have no use for that. Nobody's ever going to use that stupid thing. right? Because of that mentality. So Watson's son comes into IBM, takes over, and he's like, we got to change. We got to change. We're going to die. We need innovators. We need, right? We need people thinking about creative ways to new products and blah, blah. And people were terrified. They were terrified. He almost had to leave the organization. They were terrified. Like, it was such a stigma, the IBM, right, thing that was going on, that they actually thought that his son was coming in and cleaning house of any free thinkers by enticing them to be free thinkers, kind of thing. And it took like 4 years for them to get out of that culture of the old IBM syndrome. It's really interesting, man. Look it up, read about it. It really is an interesting. So anyway, we finally are in this world now where we have this thing called capture phase and bubbling phase. And to Microsoft's credit, capture phase is pretty much widely ignored by default and available to be listened to by option. So when we add an event listener, our last parameter, we have 3 parameters that we add into an event listener. Does anybody know what those are by any chance? In the order that they're added.
Event, function, and capture.
That's
Capture.
right. And what's use capture?
Apparently it is a Boolean. Like a Boolean.
Right?
Almost like a,
Boy, you're right. True or false, right?
Right.
Right? And so what is that true or false for?
I want to say position, but that's not.
No? You did good. Say to me, say, I said enough, dude. Move on. Right? Does anybody got it? While Jimmy was talking, others were looking. That's why I'm like,
Okay.
I didn't look it up, but if I remember correctly, it says whether true or false tells you whether it's bubbling or capture. Well,
This is please the master.
This is please the master. $1 million.
go play with the reindeer.
Somebody check me on this,
Maybe I
please.
will.
Look it up, right? Because I'm about to say something that could be absolute bullshit. If I'm correct, if we set it by default, it's false. And if we set it to true, what we're saying is capture the event on the way down, and we'll always capture it on the way up. I believe that's, so in other words, what we're saying is do the capture. We always do the bubble. That Boolean is whether we should do the capture. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
That sounds right.
I think I'm right.
So the use capture is also called the event capture phase.
Yep.
In this phase, only the capture listeners are called, namely listeners to register the value of true for the third parameter of add events. If this parameter is omitted, its default value is false. And the listener is not a capturer.
I think I'm correct on that.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
I think it's on that page, like 2 paragraphs down.
Is it, dude?
Yeah. I think so.
Oh. If it's false default, then the handler is set on the bubbling phase. Handler is set on the capture phase. Yeah, but I think it captures the bubble too for some reason. Formally, if one capturing and bubbling handles on target element, capture handler triggers the, and the bubble handler triggers the, okay. So what I'm reading there is we have to set both, right? If we want to get both, if we want to catch it on the way down and the way up. But for some reason, I'm still maintaining in my head. So one good way to look at it is let's start up here. We have some sample code. And what's cool about this sample code, so this is an on-click event, right? It's just an inline on-click event. And it's saying alert form. Then we have another one, alert div, alert paragraph. And if we look, form, div, paragraph, we're down in the trough, right? So if I click on the P, D, div, form. So it shows us how, right, it traveled up through, correct? If I click on the div, div, form. If I click on the form,
This form.
just form. What's funny about this is this almost becomes, when you first learn this almost becomes a little scary. Because you're like, wait a minute, what about, how am I'm making this game where I'm clicking on all these different things. How in the hell do I, right? But trust me, as you move forward, if that enters your mind, right, as you move forward, you'll be okay. You'll see. But the point that I'm making is that it's a little kind of weird. Like, how do I make that button click and nothing else screw up? You'll become more and more comfortable with that. So we get that. That's bubbling, right? P, div, form. And by the way, if you want to do something fun, I would love to have little samples like this where they're ridiculous kind of thing, and not in alert boxes, because alert boxes, I don't know, it just kind of sucks. So if you feel compelled to make something and submit it as a right GIST or something, that would be awesome. Anything that we're learning, anything that can help someone see. So we can see, and I think this makes pretty much perfect sense to us, right? The whole bubbling thing at this point. In a minute, so bubbling, before we hop over to capturing, I want to point out a good example of bubbling, where bubbling cannot be good, right? Can be a pain in the ass. And that example would fall under something similar to, let's just say, localhost / and bikers. I love them all. Do I have localhost running? I do now. Localhost, I'll just pull 5. See, we got 4xx in here. I'm just going to use this 4xx because it's on localhost. And if there's something I learned about using this overrides thing today, it works perfectly when you're on localhost. And in my last class, I tried using it off of localhost, and it just was a mess, absolute mess. The reason I want to come in here, and we can just do it this way. We don't even have to do overrides. I'm going to inspect that. I have my H1 and my H2, right? I have my main. Inside my main, I have a P. So I think I was, so let's say I'm going to go inside this paragraph, right? I'm going to add a href equals. I'm going to put target do window, what I'm looking for. And I'm going to say go goo, and then I'm going to close that. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to put https:// google.com. What did I do wrong here? It looks right, doesn't it? Why is it coming out that way? I should be able to put an anchor tag inside a paragraph tag. Edit is HTML. Try it that way. Goo. There we go. So if I click on that, right, what it should do for me is open up Google in a new tab, correct? But if I told it that I wanted it to do, right, to basically just tell me that it alert me that I'm going, or do something different. You know how I open up when you click on a link in the homework and it opens up that little kind of browser thing that I made, right? Let's say I wanted to do something like that. I'm not going to go full-fledged here, but the thing that I want to make clear here is if I go in here and I edit HTML, I'm going to make a copy of this real quick just so I have it. Make sure I have, so I don't have to type it every time because we're going to lose it. And I say target none. Now what's going to happen? I lose my person because they just left my website. They clicked on it and went to another page, right? And so one of the things that you want to make sure that you do in these scenarios is use events, right? And here's how we do this. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get that. And because we know about bubbling now, right, we're a little smarter. Edit HTML. And remember, this is dynamic HTML that's being generated in here. So we don't really always have control whether or not we really want target and blank in every one of our links on our site. So we could write that loop to go through all of our A elements and add target blank kind of thing, whatever. Or we could simply do something a little smaller. We wouldn't have to rewrite the HTML all the time, and we could just wait for something to happen. And what we'd be waiting to happen is this. We would say, var PG links equals document dot get element by get elements by name, by tag name. And we're going to do that because what we want to do is we want to aggregate, a collection of all links on this page. And so by doing that right now, if I hit enter and I go look at page links, what I have is a collection, and there's only one link on this page. But if there were 50 links on this page, my collection would be 50 long, right? So now I'm going to say, being cheap. Yep. Yep.
An event listener?
Nope, that is a selector, right? What we're doing is we're going out and we're selecting, essentially we're selecting everything with that tag name that's out there that exists inside that DOM. So think about it too, another way to think about the DOM is the way we were talking about it earlier. I was looking to steal, I had a cool little piece of code I wanted to steal. I don't think I'm going to get it. We'll just stop there. So if I now have this collection of page links, it's called page links. Man, I wish I could find that piece of code. It's a really cool piece of code. And I'd say page links length inside here, it's only going to be one loop at this time, right? But what we can do, we could say this URL have a peek at it. So we'll use that annoying alert. Now we'll do console log. Console.log. This URL, sorry, href. Because what we're doing is we're peeking inside this as we loop through each one, right? And we want to grab a piece of information And we want that piece of information to be the href. And we know that that's available to us. Does that make sense? Yes? Hopefully when you see it, it will. Page links, we know that's this collection here that we output. The collection is just one at this point. We're going to do a loop so we don't have to like go after things all the time, right? And we're going to say console log the href value. So in this case, I blew something up. Oh, let's do it this way. Let's not go after this. Sorry, context is not going to work there. What we want to do is I, right? Because we're looking through the array and we know we need index numbers for the array to read each level, right? When we have an array, we kind of look at it like a parking garage in a way. And there's a level, and each level has a piece of information on it, has a car parked on it, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
Makes sense? Why did that go away? I thought I changed that. We're going to loop through this array. We're going to do I, and enter, and there we go. So we only have one. You see how that played out? It put the href out. But what we can do to this, since we're short, I'm just going to clear things in here. And since we're short, I'm going to go ahead and say page links. I know that we only have one, but in a real world scenario, we would use that loop to apply it to all of them. And I'll show that to you then, but I want to be more specific right now. And what I'm going to do is add an event listener. That makes sense.
Does page links are elements?
What's that?
Are the page links elements?
Yep,
Okay.
they're elements. Everything's an element, right? Right. I'm going to add this event listener in here, and I'm going to tell it I want it on the click, right? And then I'm going to say, just going to create a function in here because I can. And I'm going to say console console.log. I believe we can use this here. I'm not sure exactly, but I'm pretty sure we can use this here. href, right? So console log href. And I'm going to work backwards because I don't want to lose the code that I've put in here. And you'll understand what I mean. You know how when I clicked on that, I lost the page, it went somewhere else? Yes.
Do you need the comma after click the event listener or not?
I think I might. Thank you. So what's really cool is in function here, what I can do is I'll put E, and you could put Jack Me Off, right?
Yeah.
Michael Hunt, right? You can put whatever in there. But what we're doing is we're capturing that event as well. And I think we could even use this, to be honest with you. What I'm going to do is say, on this event, prevent I think it's prevent default. Prevent. Let's type this like go look at my code for the frickin' thing. Yeah, I'm right. I'm just questioning myself. Prevent default. What do you think that'll do? And we're talking about capture, bubbling, propagating. So default of this is when that click event happens is to go up the window. Window takes that click event by just default browser activities. Says, oh, you clicked on a link. Location dot, right? New location equals google.com, changes the page. So that would be the default activity on a click. So if I prevent default, if I have this code written correctly, that's the big part. What will happen when I run this? I didn't go anywhere. Because what it did is it prevented default.
Well, the default would send you there as a hyperlink.
Right. If I didn't put prevent default, it would bubble up. So what prevent default is doing is this, right? Like kind of catching that bubble and saying, you're not going anywhere,
Oh, okay.
right?
Right.
Don't go up.
Yep. So why would you want that though?
What?
Why would you want that though?
Here's why.
Because it's gonna just make it dead.
Nope, not at all. Here's why. Let's go look in our homework. Let's go into, hey, let's do it right inside event handlers, and this will show you why. I'm gonna full screen it. That's why. Now, they will not allow, because of something we haven't talked about, it's called cross-domain policies, right? Some sites like Developer Network are like, screw you, we give you an API. No, you don't need to open up our pages in your iframes. And therefore, you may not do that, right? And so what I've done here is I have inside the code here, right? Let me see if I can find one. Get a lot of denies on this one because all the good information is on the sites that you really want to, you know what I mean? But a good example would be in here. That's just a link to YouTube. That's what that is. But when I click on it, instead of sending you out to YouTube, I open it up in this iframe that I make look a little like a browser kind of thing. The idea of this tool, right? And I'm not selling you the tool or anything, but I'm saying, right, this ties into the idea of the tool. The idea of the tool is to make your life a little easier by stop having you have to open up so many freaking windows and go so many places, right, to find information and whatever, and to give you the ability to hopefully, with exception to like the ones where we have to go to a new tab, keep you in there. Well, the thing is I don't want to sit and like focus on every freaking link all the time, worried about, is it opening in blank? Should it open here? Should it open there? So no, what I do focus on, and I can show you, and you'll see, right, with these events, this is like one of the biggest parts to you being a developer is events, right? Because without the events, we don't have the interactivity. We don't have the, right? And so kind of like, as weird as it sounds, kind of like a lion tamer, you know, if you don't know your lions, they don't give a shit about that lump of steak on the end of your stick. They're going to eat you, you know, like kind of thing. And so you got to figure out your lines, and your events are your lines. They're the ones that can make you or break you, is your events, you know? So I'll go in here, and I just want to show you real quick so that you can see and feel what we're talking about. If I go into my custom JS, yes, I didn't call this one app, believe it or not. This is, by the way, this is that tool that you open up. That's the CSS. And this is the JavaScript. And one of the things that you'll see in here over and over again. Find, let's do, not event, sorry, click. 22 of them found. One click, one click, one click, right? One click, one click. And one of the biggest ones that I want to find for you I think I'm coming up on. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. Right here. Basically what I'm doing in here is everywhere that I'm injecting content, right, that is in that tool that we use. Not the whole tool, not the links in the top, because I want when you hit Slack to go out. I want to leave those links to be controlled independently. But inside the core areas, like the learning objectives, right? Inside the content item summary, which is the text that you see there. Inside this section, which is what encapsulates all those things. It's kind of over redundant that I do it this way, but I don't care. What I'm doing is telling jQuery that on window load, wait a second, make sure everything's loaded correctly, and then that's what the set timeout is there for, and then go in and find every A tag like we did, right, with the other. Go in and find every A tag in there, and I want, when it's clicked on, I want you to execute this function. Well, this function, what I've done and what you'll end up doing as you write code and become more comfortable, you know, at first you end up with a bunch of this crap going on, and here you can see right here's that prevent default. So I'm making sure that no bubbling happens. In other words, you don't leave that page kind of thing. But I'm also, what I'm doing is I'm created a function where I pass that click event to, and I grab the current link, current title, and this is what makes that whole browser for you. I reach out to JavaScript, and I do a, out to PHP, and I check the page that you're clicked on. If it comes back and says cross-domain policy, that's when I say access denied and open you up in a new window. I'd like to make that prettier eventually, but now. But what we can do, so what I'm doing in here to make it real short, I'm going to go ahead and just steal that. Get to my point faster, because we know I'm not good at that. Let me get back to our sample. So now when I click on this, right, I get this happening. What I really want, I'm going to do a little cheating so I can refresh. I'm going to copy that. I don't want to retype everything. Okay. Take this. Paste that up. If you know, all I'm doing is aggregating my code that I've done up to this point. That's all I'm doing. Because when I refresh, I lose all that. I don't want to go looking for it. It's still there in suggestions, but I don't feel like going and looking for it when I can just do that, right? So I can come in here, I can say, get my page links. I can say, page links, add event listener with this click function, right? I can say, prevent default. Now, what I really want, put that above prevent default. I just wanted a good flow. I think it would work either way, to be honest with you. And I want to replace current link with this href. So it looks a little similar to that click in line, right, that I put up there, where I said, in the A where we put target and we put href. If you look, that's the href value that we're passing. That's the target value that we're passing. So by default, we don't really need this in there, but we'll do it for fun. And by the way, this is what I do like about working in here. If this works, I go to my JS file and I paste it in, right? If I'm working on something, instead of playing a save, blah, 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 I play with it in here. It makes me a better coder because it gives me some suggestions, but at the end, not enough to make me lazy. You know what I mean? If I do that now, Add event listener is undefined. Page links. What'd I do wrong here, guys? Oh, what didn't I do? I'm going to do a refresh. We don't have any page links. I didn't remember I added that page link in. So A href equals do you. What was the Goo Goo Dolls? Goo. I like the Goo Goo Dolls. Now I'll go back to console. I'll run my script. I'm good. Showed me that I have a link in there that's Google. According to this, I'm taking page link 0, which is the only page link that's in there. And I'm adding the event listener to it. To do that, click console, and then I'm going to open the window. I'm going to be respectful to the person that they want to go to this site, right? But I'm going to also make sure that they don't go away from my site, right? And open it in a blank tab, prevent it from bubbling up. And there we go.
So this is your site?
No, this is just showing you, right? This is how you want to think as a developer. Think about it like this. Let's really put it in context for you. They're sitting in the shopping cart on a $600 order on your site. And there's a compliance link that you have to have in your cart right next to the complete purchase button. Do you really want, right? Do you really want them to leave that page? Right. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The nice thing about this now, I can look at this, and the really nice part about it, I'm just going to copy element. I'm going to do a refresh, which means I just lost all my code. But another nice thing about working in console, I'm going to go in here, edit as HTML. I'm going to go, and I'm going to put about 50 links in there. I'm going to come out the console. I'm going to bring up that code I just executed before. Holy crap, right? That's that for loop showing me every one of my links. And now anywhere, any of these that I click on makes a liar out of me. What did I do wrong? Thank you. Right, so I need to put that in the loop. Thank you, sir. All right. I was trying to be all cocky and cool. We see how that works. I'll show you in a second. Yes, I'll show you in a second here, bud. It'll make perfect sense to you in a minute. If you say so. And I'm going to put that inside paragraph tags, by the way. I don't want them all piled up next to each other because I'm anal like that. So now we have a bunch of links, right? GUI, right here, Jimmy. This, right? What the right thing to do here is we need to loop through and assign it to each one, correct? Right now we're just pointing it at the first one, right? So there's a couple things we need to do here real quick. Take this function, GUI Pooey. We'll call it GUI Pooey. Because it's Thursday night. Copy that name. I'm going to get rid of that because we don't need that. We need that up here, correct? If I'm doing this correctly, I should be able to just call GUI Pooey. I shouldn't even have to put parentheses. I don't think it would hurt if I did, but I'm going to take this. I'm going to come up here. You feeling it now? And see how we do the eye in here? Now we will apply it to all, right? So now, I think if I do this, it'll blow up. I'm going to give it a shot. Actually, what I can do, my variable is already defined for there. So this should work. I thought it was already defined. Maybe not. But now, do it clean so you can see. So it went through and it hit all those links. If I come in here, hopefully, these are the moments that sucks being a teacher. Notice I'm not as cool as it was last time I did it. Right? That worked. That worked. And so there's how you can form, right, an appreciation. So here you are, like in responsive, right? Deploying dynamic, we were talking about deploying dynamic content into our site. But we want to control a lot of what happens with that dynamic content. And if we're farming our content, right, pulling it from other sites as well, and we don't have control over certain things. But one thing we can damn well make sure of and should make sure of is when we pull content into our site, we never, ever, ever let one of their links take our user away from our site. We allow it to open it, and so we capture that. And so when that is clicked, right, that bubble, the capture phase happens. The capture phase happens in there. In this case, honestly, honestly, we're at the bottom of the bucket there. So capture is more or less just smacking off itself and bubbling up the tree then. So when one of these are clicked, it goes paragraph, main, div, body. We can say HTML and we can say window, right? On the capture down, right, on the way down, there are times that you'll want to use that. You'll want to capture, and this is where you'll see a lot of scenarios with that capture going down. Bear with me. With that capture going down, you'll see in those scenarios, a lot of you'll see it a lot in games, right? Because the game is focused on kind of thing. In a regular site, you'll see more bubbling, right? But in a game, you'll see it because you want to capture that event. Something below it, something within it has happened, and you want something to happen, right? Is this one capture? Form click. So event current target. I'm trying to get the capture before we run out of time here. Our targets, I'm just going to run down this page real quick. It's in the reading. You can go over it. It's a great read. These guys are, by the way, if you don't have these guys bookmarked, JavaScript info, bookmark it. Great reads. Great jobs at explaining things, you know.
I did a search for capture and bubble, and that's the site that came up.
Yeah, they're great. And the two videos that I have are really decent videos that are there. So again, capture phase goes down. Target phase, the event reached the target element, right? So it'll go with the capture phase. What it's doing is it's getting itself to the target element. And what's important about that is if we're doing capture phase, which is fine, right? As you get better, you get more comfortable. And again, why games uses, right? JavaScript gaming will use it so much because you're able to identify the target on its way down. Where's it headed, right? Where's the destination? And therefore, you can have this chain of events that takes place based on the target. right? So if the target, the best way to explain it, it might not be perfectly technically sound, right? But think about this. You have these things that you're shooting with your mouse pointer. You hit one, and the idea is that when you hit one, you send a missile down a pipe that goes to kind of like the Enterprise, you know what I mean? It's like got to go down in the pipe and hit the main generator kind of thing. Well, you send it, that target goes, right? That event goes. You want that pipe to kind of show smoke and bulge a little bit as that is going down before it gets to the target and hits the target. You literally could use this to do that, right? You literally could have divs. You could say, I'm going to put 600 divs between the target that when you click on this, the target's down here, and you could write the JavaScript, the math, to have those divs go as the events are fired off. You'd have to slow it down, right? You literally have to slow the event process down. Well, you wouldn't slow the event process down. You literally would time out. That by the time it hit the target, that has bubbled back up and is gone. You know what I mean? Like it's no longer existing kind of thing. But that's a great example. I hope that makes sense to you, right? Of using, right, a capture because it's on its way in. It's on its way into the DOM. And if you build your stuff right, if any of you ever go study writing games with JavaScript, one of the things you'll learn is your nesting really does play in it, right? Really think about the box model and how one box can impact the outer box or the inner box and things like that. Big deal. So at this point, form, so it's capturing HTML, capturing body, capturing form, bubbling form. Sorry, we clicked on the form. Bubbling body, bubbling HTML. P, capturing HTML, and think of your elements, right? Your entire HTML document. Capturing body, capturing form, capturing div, capturing P, bubbling P, bubbling div, bubbling form, bubbling body, bubbling HTML. And what should be going through your mind when you look at this, if it is going through your mind, you're thinking correctly. All events are dispatched and received by the window. And therefore, all events will be triggered, right? The window is watching, correct?
Yeah.
We tell the window to watch for these events. And so again, where does it begin? Right, basically the window, right? And so you can almost think about events, all events. And so what you're watching there is what's happening with your mouse every time you move, right? Every time you move your mouse, that's what's happening. So you can almost think about it on, no, I don't have anything real good, but maybe like a submarine at 1,500 feet deep, where it counts on that sonar kind of thing. It's constantly sending and receiving, sending and receiving, sending and receiving. And then when a fish swims by, right, it disrupts that sonar and they get an event.
Earlier.
Right.
If you clicked on a higher level.
You're the fish, right? You swim by the sonar and you trigger off a ripple on their screen kind of thing. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's the best way to explain it, but I think it helps you conceptually get there. I'm telling you, this events, lexical, right? Execution, the things that you're watching videos on. Hopefully, we won't talk about it. Understanding these things, again, you've heard me say it, I'll say it again and again. Understanding these things are what will help you appreciate, right? You kind of get into functions, you start to learn them. It's kind of hard to even talk about these things till you've played with functions and variables and stuff and have become pissed off with them and whatever. And then you come over to the reason side of it and you're like, son of a bitch, wow, that just made it a whole lot easier, right? And by understanding these couple things, it's almost like understanding how bingo balls end up where they, if there's a rhyme and a reason and a rhythm, that bingo balls will come up in a certain order, and you can figure that out, you can win bingo more often than not, kind of thing. Or better example, blackjack, right? Understanding on a 3-deck table the odds and the statistics and things, well, it makes the game a lot easier and more fun. Same thing with this, right? You understand, like now you understand, you at least get the high level that, wow, son of a bitch, when I click, it literally is a message sent from the window down to where I'm clicking and back up. And son of a bitch, I can actually tap into that as an opportunity when it happens on its way down and back up.
But I just dropped a link in Slack to console log every time the mouse is moved. Really.
It's crazy, right? It's crazy to watch that crap. Where'd you put it, in our class?
Yeah. Going for the next coordinate.
That's all right. This does get nuts. It's crazy, man. It's crazy, right? To me, what's mind-blowing is how much, and when you think about it, that ain't nothing. But how much information is being processed just swiping your mouse across the screen. And then for me, someone who was lucky enough to fly for a period in my life and I love flying, I love planes, and to understand that a flap, an aileron, you know what the ailerons are? They're basically what, right, makes the plane go like this. To realize that there's like a trillion messages every second, or I don't know what right, but just the amount of information that processes allows me to come back and look at this and be like, all right, sure, that makes sense. That's possible. You know what I mean? Like, okay, all right. To know that a plane, what a plane processes just on landing alone. Oh my God. But actually, Tyler, I think what you want to do here, bud. You want to go then, right? I think that'll work. Damn stuff. Thanks. If you notice, it's still doing the console log from the previous one. So we have 2 events firing on that mouse. Come in here. Right, so now we're firing off the capture and the bubble. Which is interesting, right? It happens so quick, but you can see that there's like 1 pixel off sometimes because it's on its way down and on its way up, right? And it would make sense that the second one is the,
One. Of the bubble?
Yeah.
Lighter one?
Yeah.
All right.
cool. Good class, thanks. I enjoyed class tonight. I hope you did. Have a good evening. Have a great weekend. Have a great Easter weekend.